Welcome back to Christian Questions on News Talk 104.7 WXLM. Our subject this morning, why does God permit suffering? To be a part of our program, call 860-442-9956. That's 442-WXLM.
And Jonathan, we're looking at the pathway to righteousness. We're looking at the pathway of God's plan as laid out in the Scriptures. He had dominion set up. It took a bad turn and needed to be restored. So now, in order to restore it, you've got a race of humanity that grows and develops in sin. Each generation is going to grow further away from the original intention there. So what do you do with that? You work righteousness one person at a time. God started with Abram in Genesis 12, and I'm just going to read one phrase. He says basically, leave the country of your family and go to a land that I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation. So he asked something from Abram, and then he said, "Go do what I'm asking you to do, and I'm giving you a promise." So God deals with a family first. He deals with Abraham, and again, we're just going to read parts of Scriptures in the interest of time.
Genesis 22, verse 18. By your offspring shall all the nations of the earth gain blessing for themselves, because you have obeyed my voice.
Okay, what a great process. By your offspring shall all nations gain blessings for themselves, because you have obeyed my voice. Because of your offspring, all nations will be blessed.
That's that restoration we were talking about that was lost.
And so it's a prophecy saying this is the process. It's going to come back. So then the same promise is passed on to Abraham's son Isaac.
Genesis 26, verse 4. I will establish the oath which I swear unto Abraham thy father, and I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these lands, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed.
So not only is there a blessing given to the nation that was to come from Isaac, which came through his son Jacob, but to all the blessings, all the families of the earth as well. So it's a two-pronged attack here, and that's the restoration that we've been talking about. And then it goes on to his son Jacob.
Genesis 28, verse 14. And in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed.
Okay, so now you've got this promise passed literally from generation to generation to generation. As we know, in Genesis 32, Jacob's name is changed to Israel. And now the blessings are going to work through his family, which becomes the nation of Israel. But understand the important thing, Jonathan. In order to restore that which was lost, you have to identify what's wrong.
Good point.
See, if you don't identify what's wrong, you're not going to properly restore that which was lost.
And that's where the law was given.
Exactly. The law covenant was given to Israel as a guideline toward righteousness. In Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 to 17, you have the Ten Commandments. We're not going to read them in the interest of time. You've all heard of them. They give a guideline for living. They help us understand the value of righteousness. God had a chosen people in the midst of the peoples of the world whose allegiance had turned from God. So God chooses a people out of all of these people to say, here is a beacon of righteousness through this law. Now, just because the people of God were chosen doesn't mean that everything was perfect.
Not at all.
How do we know that?
Amos 3, 1 and 2. Hear this word that Jehovah hath spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up out of the land of Egypt, saying, You only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore I will visit upon you all your iniquities.
So God is saying to Israel, because you live in the context, in the world of sin and death, even though you are my chosen ones, I am going to punish you for your sins. So God is saying that there is going to be suffering that's going to be put upon you, especially because you're chosen. Now, how fair is that? You're the chosen. Well, think about the father and the child. And again, I go back to my own experiences with my own children. Incidentally, I had the best children that ever were. Okay, I know that. Because they're mine. Okay, they're mine. And But that didn't negate the punishments that had to be doled out sometimes, and the difficulties, and their not understanding why I did what I did as their father. Now look, I'm an imperfect man. I probably made a whole lot of bad decisions along the way. But I did what I believed was in their best interest for them all of the time. And they oftentimes did not agree with that. And there was a lot of friction, a lot of suffering, a lot of difficulty as a result. They couldn't see it my way, okay? Because my way was a way of experience and care for their life, not for their today that they can't go to that concert, but for their life tomorrow and the next day and the next year and the next 10 years. That's what my care was for them. God's care for us is exactly the same. And when we say, you're the worst father in the world, because we're all upset that we can't do or can't go or can't be because Dad said no, and well, yeah, my dad, oh, what a loser he is. Sometimes I think we look at God with those same eyes because we see things in the context of our small life, our events, rather than the eternity. God put these things in place so we can learn from them eventually, and I think that's what it comes down to. Getting back to Israel and the law. And we won't take time on this, but if you look at Israel and the law, they had to offer sacrifices on a regular basis.
That's right.
Why did they have to do that?
To be atoned for their sins. To
keep them in harmony with God. So God was continually requiring things. Why? Because they were sinful. Because their natural propensity was to go back to sin. So those sacrifices would help to keep them. But those sacrifices didn't take away their sins.
No.
And that's why they had to be repeated over and over and over again. Well, when you look at Zechariah, again, let's go to another prophecy. Zechariah 9, just read just part of verse 10 here.
And he shall command peace to the nations. His dominion shall be from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth.
Okay, so again, another promise of restoration. His dominion shall be from sea to sea, from the river to the ends of the earth, restoring that which was lost. In the Old Testament, in the context of the Jewish law, you have these prophecies given of something to come down the road that was greater than the law itself.